Welcome back to A City Planner Plays City Builders. We are playing City Skylines and building the city of Bluffside Crossing. Today we are going to focus on building a part of the city that we haven't really focused on before, and that is a poorer neighborhood, a low-income neighborhood. Slums, a ghetto, workforce housing, whatever you want to call it. We are going to be building 3 different kinds of lower income housing. First, we are going to build a trailer park. Second, we are going to build kind of a lower income urban area. And then third, we are going to build housing projects. This is an interesting topic because when you start building in City Skylines, it really kind of builds a Disneyland type utopia. And the new urbanist neighborhood that I built in the previous couple episodes is kind of an example of some of the criticisms that new urbanist neighborhoods have received over the years, is that they're building for middle to upper middle to higher income individuals. So let's focus on a neighborhood that is different, show the kind of grittier side of the city, which is something that makes it a little more realistic. But before we start on that, I want to give a big shout out to Biffa. Thank Biffa for tweeting out my channel and welcome everyone who is at this, who's joining us because of his referral. It's a huge help to making this channel grow and really a great motivator for me to put out new content, and I appreciate you all joining. So without any further ado, let's get started. So I think the things that we're going to want to look at are what areas would be suitable for these kinds of neighborhoods. And by thinking about what would be suitable, it's actually what would be not suitable for other types of housing. And generally where you would see a trailer park, for instance, would be land that is undesirable for most other uses. The interesting thing about a trailer park is that if you wanted to develop a trailer park right now, you would have a very difficult time doing so. It's a very time-specific use. World War II, post World War II use was supposed to be temporary in rapidly expanding cities, and they ended up becoming not so temporary. So if you were to go and try to develop one, you'd have a very difficult path. In the community that I work in, I'm not sure how you would get one. I don't even know of a land use category that would allow it. So that said, the existing trailer parks have oddly become very valuable, and at the detriment of the residents there. So I find it to be a use that is, I understand why it exists. I understand why it can be valuable, and I generally feel bad for the people that live in them right now because of some of the things that are happening with unscrupulous landlords that are, raising lot rents. It's an unfortunate situation to own your home and not own the land that your home is on. That said, let's take a look at our city. And I think the first place we want to look at is land values. Clearly, any place that has a high land value is not going to have a trailer park. The kinds of things we're going to look at are pollution. Where there's pollution, the land value is probably low enough to support this kind of use. We're also going to want to look at, let's see, not necessarily garbage, but pollution, noise would be another one. So let's see. So noise pollution is probably one of the bigger ones we're going to look at. And that kind of goes with all of these uses. So I think those are the ones I'm going to focus on. And there are a couple areas that I thought would be really suitable for this. And over here, near the waste processing complex that serves most of the outer ring of the city, close to the airport. Near the airport is where you see a lot of trailer parks, but I'm leery of putting anything near the airport because in the future we're going to be expanding, and I don't want to tear down the trailer park to put in an international airport or a cargo hub. So I think we're going to build near this waste processing complex. So the one of the things to know about trailer parks is generally all of the infrastructure within the trailer park is self-contained and privately owned. Be that the roadway network, the utilities, all of it is private. So you're generally not going to find sidewalks or things like that within a trailer park. You'll find that the lots are generally pretty narrow, but there might be a variety of lot sizes. So we are going to have a number of different lot sizes. So we'll have some 3 tile wide lots, maybe some 2 tile wide lots, and even some deeper 4 tile wide lots. And I'm using these 2-lane plain streets because I think they mirror the way that a trailer park's roads would look. You're not going to find sidewalks generally. So I think it aesthetically fits the area well. And you'll generally find these narrow streets. Sometimes they'll cul-de-sac out. Sometimes they will loop back around. And then often you will find that these trailer parks have trees surrounding them. And that is for the benefit of not only the trailers, but also of the surrounding uses. If you do find these in more densely populated areas that are near, I guess, more traditional uses, you'll find that there's landscape screening. So I am creating a district here because I want to use the theme manager to enable some of the themes. So I'm going to enable theme management for this area. Disable buildings that aren't in this theme. And I'm only going to enable trailers. So I mentioned that I don't want, that I want this to kind of be self-contained. So I'm going to keep these, I want to make sure that the trailers are facing the same direction. And I want to make sure that they're not escaping this district at all. Actually, now that I look at this road, I think I'm going to convert all of these roads to be private roads within here. So let's get utilities to this area. And because these are all private roads, I'm not overly concerned about where the infrastructure lays because I don't think that the private owner would necessarily care where they are. What they would probably do would be to look at where their water pipes are and maybe carve out a little area where there's landscaping. So the other thing I want to do in this area is to have some commercial uses. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to back that off and line this area with commercial uses. And this is to provide the neighborhood with some services that are probably going to be very much needed to serve these residences here. So let's do a little bit of landscaping. Whoa. What you would likely see would be many trees separating the trailers from everything else. So let's see, for some reason the trailers aren't developing just yet. Might need to give it a little bit of time. Or let's just make sure that we have power connected. Okay, and now we're finally seeing some development here. So that was the issue. And if we look at power, now it's finally connecting over. So I could get rid of those power lines, but I don't necessarily think that their presence is a problem. Just gonna kind of ring this with trees to really screen it in. Now, sometimes you would see, a small park or something like that within the trailer park itself. And that might be something that we want to add. You can kind of see, so I really like this theme in this set. I can put a link down to it in the description, but I'm using the themes manager and the trailer park theme. So this will slowly build out and develop, and you'll see that a variety of lots with trailers all in a row will form here. So that is the first kind of low-income housing that a community might have. And, assuming that the residents can own their lot, this would be very affordable housing. Generally, trailers are very inexpensive. The problem is that most of the time, people who live in a trailer don't own their lot, and their lot rent can be significantly higher than the cost of their trailer, hundreds of dollars per month, and it can be raised kind of at any time. So certainly something to be aware of. So we're gonna let this develop and build out and start building our second kind of neighborhood. Actually, let's clean up these trees a little bit. Don't love the way I did this necessarily. Okay, so we've got this trailer park growing. The next type of neighborhood that I want to build is kind of an older, urban, dense, lower income area. And these are the kinds of areas that you might see in an industrial area. So what I was thinking is taking this area that's very near to downtown, but with actually very little connectivity to it, and creating a lower income neighborhood right here. So I don't want to completely destroy all of the industrial within the neighborhood, but we're going to add residential to it and commercial. So let's get this going right off the bat. So I'm going to connect down and kind of start to build a neighborhood right in here. So just for my own benefit and for ease, I am going to dezone most of what's in here right now and start fresh. But we are going to add some of that industrial back to the neighborhood. So I don't want to completely destroy what was there around it, but I do want this to be different. So I think we're going to upgrade some of these roads. The old farm roads aren't going to work in an urban area. Let's see, I don't know what these buildings are. We'll get rid of them. So we've got our district set up here. Actually, let's go a little bit beyond. And now we're going to want to use our theme editor again. And we're going to use the Slums theme. And disable all of these other themes that we have going on. Oh, and I see that we also have themes that we don't want to allow buildings that are not in this theme. So I think the main street of our new neighborhood will be in this general area. Then we'll back some industrial up here. And then have residential in this area as well. Now the land value in this area is incredibly low, and that is because of the uses surrounding it, and the new buildings that develop are unlikely to increase the value that much. So even if we were to place parks in this area, because of the theme I have, it will continue to have the general aesthetic of a lower income neighborhood. So I added some custom buildings to this theme that I found on the Steam Workshop, and added some, so I added some fast food restaurants and different uses like that. But generally, it's going to be this sort of, old school brick building with graffiti, and I think it's the kind of aesthetic that you'd expect to see in this kind of neighborhood. Some redevelopment, and some of these older buildings as well, along with parking lots, secured parking lots, and other sorts of retail. For the residential, some lower end apartment looking buildings starting to come up. And hopefully we'll get some more developing soon. But our residential demand isn't incredibly high right now. So it'll take a little while for that. Maybe I will just kind of expand this area out to encompass a bit more of this area. No real need to have this food production area kind of isolated in the middle of what will be our new neighborhood. We can make it have a little bit more natural of a shape. And then when we build out this neighborhood, if we continue to build it, it'll make a little bit more sense. So let me know if you have any names for any of these districts that we're creating, because I think that there could be some really interesting things that you come up with. Okay, now you start to see some of these buildings developing, some of these row homes, and I think that they're really interesting assets, and I'm pretty pleased with the way that they look. There were some assets in this Slums theme that I disabled because I didn't like the resolution of the textures, but I thought they had some empty lots. So in upper Midwest industrial cities, you'll often see buildings that look very similar to this next to vacant lots, as unfortunately some of those buildings get burned down because the money from the insurance settlements can be higher than the value of the property itself. So it's pretty common to see that in cities like Detroit, that buildings get burned down, you end up with vacant lots surrounded by dense clusters of buildings. Also, people will abandon their properties, will go into disrepair, and the city will go through and get what is deemed a shovel-ready pad or a building site, because in some cases the properties are worth more after they've been cleared and scraped than they are with the old structure on there, which intuitively makes sense. But I guess unless you really think about it, you might think, well, there's a building on there, it's going to be worth more. Not always. So So I do like the way that this is developing out. This area, along with the trailer park, should have some sort of transit access added to it. If I recall correctly, I believe that this neighborhood might already have some. Yeah, it just doesn't make a ton of sense right now. So that would be something to contemplate, would be actually fixing these routes. So let's move these down to what is now the main street within this neighborhood. I think that would only make sense. And we'll bring it back into the neighborhood for all of the stops as well. Some interesting things going on with the route here. Okay. And you can kind of see it's building out now, and it's starting to look a little bit more organic, and I think it's good. So the other type of low-income project that you might see would be a housing development, the Pruitt Igos of the world, Cabrini Green, and that's what we're going to actually be using as our asset for our next development. We're going to be using the Cabrini Green housing project that was destroyed, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. I was in Chicago. People loved the building. The people that lived there loved the building when it was initially developed. Unfortunately, as happens with many of the housing projects, there's money to build the building, but not money to maintain it. And as a result, the buildings fall into disrepair. And when the buildings fall into disrepair, you end up with all sorts of bad things happening. That's what happened with these as well. So this asset set has 3 different housing projects, and we're going to populate this area with those buildings. So we do have an elementary school in this area. We have the biofuel bus depot. We'll leave those behind. But we'll orient these towards the road. I think throw in some internal roads, kind of very similar to what we did in the trailer park. And hopefully we can get some greenery in there. And some park space, because with this much density, you're going to need park space. So, yeah, sorry for that brief kind of freeze up there. I was thinking a little bit. So I'm currently working on a low-income housing project, and it's different than you would imagine in the past. They were, utilitarian facilities that they were functional, but not necessarily perfect in terms of meshing with the surrounding environment. They certainly do a better job now with that, and part of that is often these sorts of developments are now built by private developers and with city assistance. So tax increment financing, things of that nature that give communities a little bit more ability to leverage a higher level of design, impose a little bit of design aesthetic to ensure that the building has a little bit more longevity. So throw in some basketball courts. Like a playground would be nice to have in close proximity. So I put that over here with some walking paths. Near it, we have the elementary school now. I could certainly terraform to make this area look a little bit better. I will admit that that is a shortcoming of this particular area, and I might do that offline, but for the time being, I do want to just kind of show the groundwork of what I'd be thinking. I want to increase the density of this area in general anyway. So that's one of the reasons why I put that here and eliminated all of the single family homes that were around it. And then I want to put some trees and landscaping in the area as well. So as I mentioned, these buildings were torn down. There are some interesting documentaries. I don't know if the one that was on Netflix is still on there, but the Cabrini Green and Pruitt-Igoe have kind of a similar story where they were, at the time they were built, top of the line, had elevators, which was kind of an innovation at the time that they were built. And basically the housing authorities had funding to build them, but not to maintain them. So it fell to residents, and the residents who live in a building like this, as you can imagine, don't necessarily have the financial wherewithal to repair an elevator. So they would break, and then no one would ever fix them. They had trash chutes, they would not be emptied, and as a result, you have different gangs that would show up and say, we can take care of some of these problems for you, recruit children, and now you end up with a crime problem. So generally now, these sorts of developments are avoided at all costs. And what you see is current planning theory is that it's much better to, rather than concentrating poverty in one particular area, and trying to, provide safe housing, but concentrated like this. The idea would be to restrict the market rate rents of a particular area, and really mix those housing units together or mix lower income housing units with market rate units, and have really a nice variety of income levels living in an apartment building. And you'll see that frequently developers will come in and ask for financing assistance, and a city will do that in exchange for restricting the number of market rate units in an apartment building for a certain period of time. So let's say this were a market rate building. We might say for 30 years you must offer 25% of your units at 50% of the area median income. So if the area median income is $50,000, you'd have to restrict the units to what someone who is making $25,000 could afford. So that would be, roughly 30% of that. So let me pull up a quick calculator. So if it's $25,000 divided by 12, that would be $2,000 a month before taxes. We'd want to look after. So $1,600, and if it was 33%, $550 a month. So that would be what the market rate rent that would be what the income restricted rent would be on a unit in that building. And when market rate is, at least in my area, 3 or 4 times that, there's an exchange that's taking place there. but it can help to produce better units, better maintained units, and more cohesive community in that way. So it's certainly a consideration. So I want to take a look back at these neighborhoods that we've developed. So you can see that Chestnut Park has built out. You kind of have a mix of these repeating, not so great looking, older buildings, and that's kind of what you see in some of these areas, are that they're industrial buildings that were converted, or really utilitarian, row homes that are just very similar throughout the entire area. And you'll see other uses that are maybe not as compatible mixed in there. So that would be, industrial right next to residential. And interestingly, that idea of having industrial next to residential is kind of coming back into vogue. But it's certainly, depending on the type of industrial, not desirable. So heavier industrial in a residential area is obviously not desirable. But you're seeing some lighter intensity industrial move closer to some residential, or vice versa. That is not what's happening in that neighborhood that we just developed. Over here, you see our trailer park is filling in, and I'm curious to see how many people are living here. Okay, 449, which seems pretty rational. There's a lot of density. That's the thing about trailers is, you're fitting a family, or in cities, Skylines, 2 into a trailer, and they're relatively small. So got a nice bit of development here, and I think it turned out well. So these are our 3 lower income housing types. Let me know down in the comments what you think, and let me know if you have any names for either the trailer park or Chestnut Park, the lower income neighborhood. And let me know if you want me to continue to develop these or move on. One thing I'm thinking about doing very, very soon is giving a little bit of character to our downtown area. Right now, downtown Bluffside Crossing has a variety of vanilla skyscrapers, which look nice. I think that Paradox and Colossal Order done a great job with this, but I think that we could liven it up with some assets from the Steam Workshop. Let me know if you have any that you think would be great. Otherwise, I'm going to be plopping some myself, giving this skyline a little bit more definition and a little bit more character. This land at this point is very valuable and would support more densification. I think generally in this downtown area, you could see some densification at this point, because this land is a hot commodity at this point. And in some cases, you might actually see the city go in there, scoop up some of this land, and have an RFP, request for proposal, for projects that are highly targeted. If the city thought that it needed certain types of uses, they could encourage those uses by purchasing the land, offering the land for sale at a low cost in exchange for getting higher density or a higher type of use or something that isn't necessarily developed naturally in the community. So maybe we'll seek to emulate some of that and expand our downtown area. So thank you so much for joining me. If you're not currently subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. Please consider liking this video and hitting that notification bell if you want to see when I release new videos. Thank you so much for joining me, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.